All right, let's talk about fat loss and nutrition. So, fat loss, the reason it's so important is because of our fat to muscle mass ratio, which produces power. Because the lighter you are with the more muscle mass and less fat, the more power you can produce because of the fact that you're lighter, but you have the same amount of force producing capabilities. You're gonna propel yourself forward faster, be able to maneuver faster, less strain on your joints, etc., etc. And the perfect example of this is Noah Lyles, right? He's 154 pounds, allegedly, but he produces high amounts of force. He's box squatting here, but you can see how important it is to be light rather than, if you're a football player, it's going to be a little bit different. But for most of us athletes, the lighter we are in terms of fat, the better we're going to perform. The lighter we're going to be on our joints, so longevity in the game. There's so many benefits to losing fat, and that's why I wanted to put that at the top of this lesson. And again, it's a very efficient strategy for getting faster. It's sometimes like one of the easiest things you can do. But when you're losing fat, you got to understand fat loss is catabolic in nature. So weight loss is catabolic in nature because using more energy than you eat equals a loss of fat predominantly, but also lean mass. And I won't even say predominantly. I'll say depending on how you sleep, train, eat. Because homeostasis is going to downregulate lean mass because muscle tissue requires more energy to maintain. And the body's main priority is always going to be survival, right? And if the body doesn't feel like it's getting enough micronutrients, it's not getting enough calories, etc., then it's going to make certain changes that may not be favorable. And this is why it's important to have adequate micronutrients, have adequate fats, and really take care of things from a holistic perspective rather than doing something like a keto diet where you just eliminate carbs or you fast and you think you're doing something there. It's like you have to form habits because you have something called homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically this imaginary bar that always goes back to the center no matter which way it goes. Okay? So you can imagine that. And if you just go keto, well, you're just going to press it down here for a really long time, but eventually it's just going to go back here. Right? And if you go on an aggressive diet that's too aggressive, you're just going to go way down here. But then when you stop doing that, you still have the old habits. You don't know what to do with yourself, so you go back here. And then you're just back to gaining the weight. This is why so many people gain weight after losing that amount of fat from like these reality TV shows and things of that nature. So the real kicker is to just make new habits and make slow, tight progressions so the new homeostasis is just a little bit more in your favor. And instead of it going like this so much, you move it, the middle still stays the same, but the bar moves to the direction you want. So, part of balancing from a holistic point of view is not being in a diet the whole time. So, being in a caloric deficit doesn't have to be a black and white thing. So, what I do and what I think even Sean O'Malley's coach programs Sean O'Malley to do is have certain days where they carbo load. I'll make it even simpler for you. On days where you train hard, where muscle protein synthesis is strongest, where testosterone signaling and the response from your body hormonally is strongest, that's when you should be eating the most, and maybe a little bit more the next day, right? Or in preparation for an event, if you're carbo loading, that's another good time to do it. But if you're having this teeter-totter effect, you have the variety but the stability long term that you need to have hormonal balance, have a overall caloric deficit, right? But gaining, like on days where you resistance train, you're getting more than enough protein. And this is going to allow you to not get super bored with your diet. You're not supposed to eat the same thing every day. You're supposed to have variety. Humans naturally want variety. Okay? There's healthy ways to include variety without just breaking your diet. Okay? And when you're in a caloric deficit, I don't recommend going in extreme caloric deficits, but the more extreme it is, the more protein you need to have and the more resistance training you need to have. But you will kind of drop the intensity on resistance training. But we'll get into that in a second. And here are just some studies supporting the fact that high fat diets are actually a part of hormonal balance. So just something to keep in mind. It's kind of contradictory to what people think, but you need a lot of fat, around 100 grams. So again, when you are in these extreme caloric deficits, I understand people need to drop weight quickly. So I created this chart based on some research I've done. When you are in a mild caloric deficit, 10% below maintenance calories, you can, and this is just maintaining the muscle that you have. I'm not talking about gains, right? Because when you're in a caloric deficit, you technically need calories in order for protein synthesis to happen. I regularly ask people to make sure those extra calories are protein, high quality sources of protein, just to not get too many excess calories that we don't need on board. But this is for just maintenance purposes and an overall just kind of estimate, right? You're never going to get it exactly right. But you don't want to eliminate any specific food group, especially not carbs, because your brain runs on glucose. Glycogen turns into glucose and literally runs your brain. It's like the main fuel source for your brain. And there's been studies that have been done on comparing fat to carbs as a fuel source in marathon runners, and our bodies just prefer carbs. They just do. And it kind of makes sense because from a survival perspective, fat is stored long term as a survival mechanism. Carbs, there's not so much storage capabilities. I think it's something like I don't want to. I have it listed in a little bit. We'll go over it in a second. But here, if you're in a mild caloric deficit, 1.6 grams or 2 grams per kilogram per body weight per day. And this is just slow general fat loss is totally fine. Again, keeping in mind the high CNS, low CNS days. So like, it's definitely going to be more if you're in a caloric deficit during a high CNS day. Definitely more. But on maintenance days, this is more than fine. I would say it's like around 0.7 grams per pound of body weight. Roughly. And then on high CNS days, like a gram per pound of body weight. And then if you're 20% below maintenance, then you go a little bit higher. And extreme, like 40% below maintenance, you should be having way more high quality protein. But this is, again, an emergency weight cut. You don't really want to do this stuff. Even the most severe weight cuts for bodybuilding, which is one of the only reasons I'd see anybody feasibly doing this, you want to have a lot more protein in your body because, again, it's a catabolic process, and in order to maintain that lean mass, you need to have first enough protein, right, so that the protein doesn't get broken down, right? But you also want to have a balance. So keep that in mind as well. Okay, just thought I'd mention that. And insoluble fiber, really both types of fiber are a must because everything is connected, and we're going to get into that in a second. So 1 pound of fat is 3,500 calories. So if you cut if you cut 500 500 calories a day for 7 days a week, that's a pound of fat. And that's totally reasonable, totally fine. Your body can't really be trained to burn more fat. I know there's all like your body's smart. So like if you go and you do like 60% intensity work and you try to get in this fat burning zone, that's not really going to do much for you in the long haul, because in the end you're going to like at the end of the day your body's just going to use whatever it whatever it deems necessary. You can't really just choose what your body burns, right? It's gonna burn what's available. And fat is typically, like from a survival perspective, it's actually typically the last thing to go, because it's we store the most of it, right? But that's just my theory. So you never want to go below this 500 calorie per day deficit if you don't need to, because again, the homeostasis thing, it's going to have catabolic effects, and you're going to have mood and hormone dysregulation. But if you do, make sure to get your micronutrients and stuff like that. Another thing to keep in mind is one cheat meal can destroy your entire plan. Okay? Like 3 pancakes with syrup and butter, 800 calories, 3 eggs fried in a row. Like that will be like 3,400 calories if you eat this meal, and you'll gain a pound. Boom. Just like that. No questions asked. Like, your body will store it. There's nowhere else for it to go, right? Your body actually may kick up its metabolism and you may start fidgeting a little bit more, but most of that will still be in your system. It'll be fairly easy to gain a pound of weight. Like you'll see it happen very, very quickly. To gain a pound of muscle, you need roughly 200 grams of high quality protein on training days, which is like 800 calories. Like on a really high CNS day, if you're like a football player, this is not for everybody, right? It's because it's about a gram per pound. If you're on like a high CNS day, should be enough. If it's high quality protein, we're gonna get into that in a second too. But you need enough carbs to fuel before training days to make sure you have the energy to stimulate hormonal response, to stimulate enough mechanical tension to create an adaptation. You need enough fats to maintain a good hormonal balance, so that's like 100 grams a day. You need to balance those metrics without under fueling. So having an idea of where your TDE is something that takes time. So if you're overeating, undereating, eventually you will track enough calories to know what your TDE is, your total daily energy expenditure. And then you need to consistently, progressively overload. So you need to do more than before. You can't just be lazy, right? Some people are genetically gifted. But this is what it takes to gain muscle versus what it takes to gain a pound of fat. A day's work, and then versus like 2 weeks work or a month's work, just depending on how your body responds to training. So we're going to go over go over the nutrition section here. We're switching from fat loss to nutrition. Insufficient calories or fat is your body's going to catabolize itself for fuel, right? We talked about that a little bit earlier. One thing you might not know is when your body releases cortisol, one of the reasons it does that is it pulls energy from the liver, so it pulls glycogen from the liver, and then it uses to put glucose into the bloodstream. And in a bit, I'll show you how much is stored in the bloodstream versus how much glycogen you have versus how much glycogen you have in your liver. And it'll start to make sense why you feel sick sometimes when you don't have enough carbs in you at the end of a day. Okay? Every micronutrient has its purpose, and that's why we recommend a supplement stack. I'm going to recommend this one like 100 times to you guys. The basic Thorn 2 a day. I think there's a more advanced one for athletes, but I looked at the ingredients all at one time and I did some due diligence, and this is the one I recommend. Thorn is pretty good about this stuff, and no, I don't really see any other supplement brand competing with Thorn, okay? And I think they are steroid tested as well, which is something you guys need to keep in mind, especially after going through everything here. You guys are going to be elite level athletes, so you guys need to start getting supplements from trusted brands like Thorn. Okay, your gut is going to be able to tell if you don't have sufficient micronutrients, if you don't have enough fiber. Beetroot powder is one of the most powerful supplements I've taken, hands down. Behind like, I mean, the multivitamin is probably the only one that's more useful I've seen, but like that thing gets your blood flowing. Nitric oxide, calcium is one of the things I noticed I was deficient in. So when I first started tracking all this stuff, I tracked every micronutrient to see where I was deficient. I still do, and I'll show you guys how that works. But then I was like, why? I'm sufficient in calcium? What is that? You know? And then you see calcium is like responsible for literally every contraction ever. Uh, I think calcium releases into the cell, and yeah, so you need calcium. I'm not sure if we produce it naturally or whatever, but I definitely saw I was short on that. Potassium for an athlete who sweats a lot, you need like a lot of that per day, more than you think. So these are and these are electrolytes, right? So this is why you drink electrolytes. They're glucose, they're potassium, things of that nature. So they all have their role, and I try to make it simple for you guys to just take a supplement stack. So I'm gonna show you how we do that in a second. And then we're going to talk about pre, intra, post workout carbs, how they affect hormones. As you can see here, this was actually a meta-analysis that I made a video on. The timing of carbs and protein has an effect on the outcomes of your program, right? Whether it's muscle building, strength, whatever. So we're going to talk about that. Pre, intra, post workout protein, same thing. And then we're going to talk about how whey protein is better than soy. We're also going to get into fiber and a couple other things. So one of the things I need to get ingrained in you guys is you need to track your calories. You need to track your calories and your weight so you know what your TD is. And for an athlete, learning your macros is like a guitarist learning how to tune their guitar. Like if you don't know what you're putting into your body, I'm sorry, but you're just not taking your job seriously. If you really want to be a professional, then you have to start treating your body in a way that is optimal for producing the results that you want. And if you don't know what you're putting in there, then you're just guessing and you're not a professional. Okay? You're not a professional. So it's going to be complicated, but you'll get used to it. And also something to understand, using Google and ChatGPT, Google Sheets and ChatGPT are something that you're just going to want to learn if you're an entrepreneur athlete, because they're super useful. So this is a link to this is the sheet. It's also going to be linked below. Don't worry about this or this right now, or even this. All we're focused on is this section right here. And what you guys are going to do is figure out your TDE. I want you to actually put office job here. This is like the first thing that pops up when you look up TDE calculator. So like if you just look up TDE calculator, it's like the first thing that pops up. Pop it up here, put sedentary office job, put your estimated body fat, right? You can estimate it. You can look at photos of people online. And then you're going to put your age, how much you weigh, and I want you to look at a sedentary office job. Okay, so this is my estimated TDE just sitting in my, because I sit in an office, right? I do move around and I go exercise, but your Apple Watch and things are not going to be very accurate. Okay, they're going to be very off, right? If you're doing a workout, you can expect like a strength training workout. You can expect to burn something like 350 to like 500 maybe. If you're doing like sprinting and stuff like that, you can expect to burn like 500 to 600, somewhere around there. If you're doing light exercise, 300 to 400. If you want to walk, 100 to 200. Rough takes, right? These are totally rough takes. But you'll start to learn what you did every day if you actually track this stuff. If you don't, then you won't. So I'm going to show you what this looks like here. And then the template nutrition sheet, which gives you the instructions, which if I show you this guy, if I show you guys this in reverse, it might make more sense, because I have my own folder in ChatGPT. I pay this for the paid version. and I give it these instructions. I'm like, all right, um, here's everything that I take on a regular basis. So my supplement stack, I put them in one of these. Yeah, I know, I'm like an old lady. So I put them in one of these so I don't even have to think about it. And I just tell, whenever I take my supplement stack with some food, like, hey, ChatGPT, I just took, right? Even today, what is today? The 24th, right? So I just took, this, and that, and then I'll say, all right, cool. I also took my supplement stack, right? And what'll happen is at the end of every day, I was asking about my tuna problem, but at the end of every day, I'll type in copy, and it'll just go like this, and this is for like a future and it was a low day, see, and this is for like a future day. Well, this is for the 24th, so it's a little bit further down. You don't have to fill this out every single day, but you have to come back to your folders and get it and go back and fill all this stuff out. But this is for the 24th. I want 161. That was wrong. Perfect. Okay, so cool. And I track all my micronutrients, right? Because I look at it at the end of the month, and I see if I'm deficient on anything, and then I see if I can fix stuff. But here's all my TDE. So this is kind of a rough take of like what my protein intake is. If it's a high workout day, you'll see me hit like 222, 2700 calories. But my maintenance, again, it's like 2100, and you can kind of see how it drops over time and how my weight actually dropped over time. And I did get a lot more lean, especially for after like looking at these videos that I make, and with my shirt off, I'm like, dude, I don't need this much fat on my body. So what did I do? I tracked all my calories. Look at like a lean, mean machine nowadays. I think I might be able to make a 145 as a weight class. But anyways, we work at all this stuff, and for you guys, it's a lot simpler. Like, you just have a few things that you need to put in. So you make a copy of this. You just click make a copy, and you're gonna have like your program. These programs are gonna be set as well. But ChatGPT, your instructions are gonna be here. You're gonna type in whatever you want to ChatGPT that you're eating throughout the day, and you're gonna give it a prompt. Whether you pay for this or you use the folder, I like to use the folder because it allows me to organize these by dates. But you can just open a new chat every single day and put this prompt in there. So so you would just copy paste this into ChatGPT every day, or have a folder where you have the instructions laid out, right? And I know this is a little bit complicated, but again, feel free to ask in the group if you guys need help with this. Again, it's tough at first, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes like second nature, because you just set this up, and then it's so easy because you can even take photos of like whatever you eat throughout the day, but you just have to figure out your TDE. So this is something that you guys can get help with using the community tab as well. So you pop in your macros, your micros, and you figure that out based on your TDE, and your micros and macros are going to be based off of how much calories you can allow. And you want to make sure you get enough fiber, which we're going to go over, enough fat, enough carbs, and enough protein. So you can use my reference. I'm about 167 pounds. And if you look at my history, we're bouncing around here, and you can see how it adds up over time, right? And how this is like my maintenance calorie. So I kind of figured it out. And now I'm just like right about there. think this was a typo. And that you guys will have typos in this, by the way. And sometimes you just need to go back and check things to make sure if they're off. If like something is extremely off, you delete it. And if you miss a day, you just delete the day, because what it does is it collects the average. So what we want to do is just get data on this entire on this Google sheet and copy and paste it over from ChatGPT, and then look at the totals at the end of the month, which are right here. So this is the average, right? So all you would do is, if you want to figure out the average of something, you click equals average of watch, equals average of D through, oh no, this one. Can I type that in here? Boom. So stupid. What is it? Average AF. Let me see. Better just go like this. Average of these. Okay. So how much protein did I have? And you do this for every single one on average. Oh, well, I had 179 grams of protein from D3, right? All the way to AF3, right? So that's my inputs. So now I have the average, and I look at all this as I go to see if I've been getting enough of what I needed. Okay? And then what type of workout did I do? And I'll just put like a high or low CNS day. I used to do it strength. And as you go, you'll get better at this. And you'll have so much data. You'll be like an exercise scientist by the end of your career, because everything is tracked. We also do this with KPIs as well. So you'll start to see how this builds up. But for you guys, it's going to be a lot simpler. So you're going to make a copy, create your average total calorie energy expenditure. Fat is going to be I think 9 calories per gram, and then carbs and protein are 4 calories per gram. So just keep that in mind as well when you're doing your whole totals. But it's going to ask you if you had a supplement stack, so it's just going to be a yes or no question. If you had a water, at least a half gallon. I would even say 1 gallon for most people. Did you get 7 hours of decent sleep? 1 serving of fruits and veggies? Did you have a high or low CNS day? And all this is programmed into the prompt. So all you're going to do is copy paste the prompt into ChatGPT, which is going to be, hey, after I log something, tell me my running total of calories, protein, carbs, fat, and fiber. How far I am from each target, what foods I can eat next to fill my gaps without overshooting. Okay? So you're going to start learning about the food that you're eating as you're eating it. You can take photos of it, you can input it, but as long as you put this prompt first, or in the instructions tab if you pay for it, you're going to have a sidekick guiding you every step of the way to your specific goals, telling you what you just ate, making you learn about food. And this is how I learned about micronutrients at first as well. You can ask it about any food. Hey, well, like what's got some fiber where I can get, and I'll explain fiber more in a second. But it also asks you if you've taken your supplements, like 1 in the evening, 1 in the morning, right, with this 2 a day. If I've drank at least a half gallon of water, slept at least 7 hours, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, when I type in copy, I want you to answer all the questions in a way that allows me to copy paste in my Google Sheet. And then it goes, which is going to be like this, and it's going to look like this. And then you are going to come over here. This is going to be from ChatGPT, of course. And you're going to place this here. And then weight is something that you put in manually. So 186 or whatever you are. Okay? So I know this is can seem a little complicated, but really, once you get used to it, I mean, all it is a prompt in there and copy pasting and a tool to help you learn what you're eating. So you're not just like mindlessly putting things into uh, any type of device. You're actually learning about your food as you go. Because again, with the homeostasis, you want to set new habits. You don't just want to like, you don't just want a personal trainer to tell you, oh, here, eat this, eat that. It's like, no, you want to learn about your food and actually become educated. That's what's going to separate you from the competition, if anything, in terms of nutrition. So, going back to this, going back to the presentation, protein. Not all protein is created equal. Whey is better than soy, pea, and other types of protein. If you have, let's say, 100 grams of whey protein, that's equivalent to about 180 grams of pea protein. And it's not just because of the not just because it's soy boy or whatever. It's because it doesn't have the amino acid profile, which is what triggers protein synthesis. So, and this is why I included corn on this side. Leucine has been shown in studies to actually be one of the amino acids that trigger protein synthesis the most. But really what you need is complete all 9 amino acids in completion to have a higher muscle building effect. So when you're in a caloric deficit, this is more and more important because extra protein is just going to get turned into fat. Your body might get rid of some of it, but this is why when you eat these things like these Meter X bars, they taste good. They may make you feel like you're getting your protein in, but they kind of suck because you have to eat way more calories. They come with a lot of sugar. They come with a lot of extra stuff. One thing I do is I put this Orgain pea protein powder in my oatmeal in the morning. It's just so good for overnight oats. And you don't get the same with whey because if it's something with the texture, that's the only time I'll sacrifice it. But even like a cheese protein puffs will have more amino acid profile. Overall, though, you want to stick to whole foods just because there's such a big difference. Okay? So, to match the anabolic effect of 100 grams of whey, you would need about 180 grams of protein. And this is a rough take, of course. So, 1 gram per pound of high quality protein on high CNS days, possibly the day after as well, maybe a little bit less, not as much. Day after is important, but right then, closer to the workout, very, very important. 0.7 grams on low days, right, of high quality, or even less. Like sometimes I'll even go a little bit lower because I'm not really stimulating protein synthesis. I'm just on maintenance. As long as it's high quality, I don't need as much. So, moving on to fiber. Fiber, there's 2 types of fiber. One of them is good for like colon health and eases and prevents constipation. So it helps your stool get passed along clear, which is going to reduce inflammation, which has an effect on mood. Like I've never seen, like I remember when I had to take antibiotics, this is when I really learned about like probiotics and your gut microbiome. If your gut microbiome is off and you have like inflammation in the gut, you're just not going to feel good and it's going to affect your mood. Like it's actually going to throw you off in a weird way where you have like more anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. And then soluble fiber, things like oats, carrots, are going to lower blood cholesterol and improve blood sugars. So it's going to make you more stable. Really, the biggest benefit I think to eating good amounts of fiber is the stability and mental clarity it gives you. I really think that's the biggest one. I think it's so intertwined because 50 to 90% of the serotonin and dopamine that's produced is in the gut. 9 out of 10 people don't get enough fiber, right? It's so nuts, okay? We wonder why we're all crazy, right? But I think that if we just all had a little bit more fiber, We could end racism. We could end political drama, right? We'd all unite. I'm just kidding. But when you really think about it, everything is connected. And it has such a large effect on your mood that is, if an athlete, if you're sleeping on getting enough fiber, you're just, man, I mean, the mitochondrial benefits, the proof is in the pudding, right? You see a systematic review where VO2 max is improved by just having a good gut microbiome. There's so many reasons to get a good amount of fiber and micronutrients. But before I move on to micronutrients, we need to talk about carbs with fiber. So whenever I'm eating carbs, I'll limit myself on my carbs to get carbs where they have a lot of fiber, like things that have a lot of fiber and carbs, because I don't want empty carbs, right? If I'm wanting to eat as little calories as I need to have that high power output, what I'm wanting to do is get my carbs in with fiber. So like things like black beans, oats, barley. That's something I have yet to try yet, but I've figured it looks pretty good, right? Lentils, oh, it's so good. Lentil soup is so good. Apples with the skin have a decent amount of fiber, and it's just an easy snack. And these have both soluble and insoluble fiber. So these knock out two birds with one stone. Avocado, also another great one. Very, very easy. An avocado a day keeps the doctor away more than an apple, I think. But yeah, so that and micronutrients, take your freaking supplement, right? Take your supplement. If you're in a caloric deficit, you're gonna need more protein, and your amino acid profile might be low, especially if you don't have enough protein, and that's gonna affect your mood. But it's also like your gut is gonna sense if you don't have enough micronutrients. That's also gonna affect your mood, right? So don't eliminate one food group. Take your multivitamins, and remember, eat carbs with fiber if you can. Now, when it comes to carbs timing, when you're in a volume accumulation phase and you're trying to have a super compensation of glycogen stores, keep in mind that's a thing that happens over time, more chronically. So you don't need to stuff yourself with too many carbs. But if you're in a session where, like, let's say in the very beginning of the program, you have this volume hypertrophy session, right? After this workout, before this workout, you don't want to eat carbs. Maybe a couple days before, but what we're trying to do is deplete all the glycogen in our system so that we have a super compensation effect after. But other than that, almost every other time, you want glucose in the bloodstream, because what happens when you don't have enough glucose in the bloodstream, the liver secretes, cortisol gets mobilized, and it moves glycogen from the liver into the bloodstream because your blood glucose levels are low. It's like when people have diabetes and they just pass out of nowhere. It's because their glucose levels are low. So what you want to do is have enough glucose this is why Gatorade's so great. Have some ready with pre-workout and intra-workout. Totally fine, right? Especially if it's a hard strength training day. Even a Pedialyte's fine. Just remember that some of those are too expensive. You don't need all that fancy stuff. But having that before the workout, intra-workout, totally fine because it gets the glucose in your bloodstream. Don't have a lot of fiber before the workout. You're going to end up going to the toilet pretty quickly if you have too much fiber. Pre, intra, post-workout protein. Having a little bit of protein in your system as well is something I forgot to mention in the protein section. But having a little protein and carbs So a little bit of protein when you start signaling for protein synthesis in like a strength session is so great, because when is protein synthesis strongest? It's when you send the signal. So having a little bit of protein in your gut, ready to go, ready to start the recovery process, makes your body feel okay. Homeostasis keeps the body stable. Your body's going to release less cortisol. You're going to be able to work out longer. Also, the same thing with carbs. Like I said in the video, there was a meta-analysis that shows that hormone levels stabilize with carb repletion very close to after working out. Carbo loading 1 to 2 days prior with multigrain, like high fiber carbs. Too much fiber too close can cause bloating and cramps. Okay? So closer to the competition, I would go to fruits, like a Rice Krispie treat, things like that, like more like white rice, even pasta the day before, white bread. Then 2 days before, whole grains, lots of fiber, making sure your gut's healthy, etc., etc. And remember, carbs are a preferred fuel source, and there's a chart down here for you for reference for anybody who wants. A little bit more on carb timing. So glycogen is turned into glucose, which goes into the bloodstream. I was explaining this. Oh yeah, we're just kind of repeating that. A little bit of a repetition there. Sorry, this is a long lesson. Yeah, we're just repeating that. I think we already went through all that. Not all fats are created equal. We're going to go over storage capabilities in a second. But saturated, trans, monosaturated, polyunsaturated. The biggest thing you got to understand is to avoid trans fat just at all costs. Trans fat is just never good for you. Monounsaturated is really good for your heart. You want those like avocados, olive oil, nuts. And polyunsaturated, also good for you, especially omega-3s. Another supplement is an absolute must for me, because you just never get enough omega-3s in your diet, is this. Now, I would probably get one from Thorne in the future. I do trust now, though. I think that sometimes they do test for steroids and stuff like that, but I mean, it's omega-3s, so I think it's okay. Again, 800 to 100 grams a day, roughly. And then as far as saturated, it has been shown to raise cholesterol. It's pretty good evidence of that. But I don't really restrict red meat that much. I just diversify when I can. If I'm going to eat a lot of red meat in one day, it's going to be like in one sitting. That's what I'm eating that day. But it's just something to keep in mind. You don't need to restrict it that much. But 80 to 100 grams a day, that's going to be, if I eat 100 grams, that's going to be 900 calories. So keep that in mind. But yeah, whole milk, stuff like that, totally okay. Get your omega-3s in as well. And if you're going to eat fish, a lot of fish that you get at the store, I used to be a commercial fisherman. 95% of it is imported. It's disgusting. Go buy wild-caught local fish that is not super big. Things like swordfish, ahi tuna, and farm-raised salmon are terrible. Well, you can have things like swordfish, ahi tuna, like big fish. Just know they have a decent amount of mercury, and you don't want to eat too much of it. Salmon, wild-caught salmon is hard to come by. Some of the ones you see at the store don't taste very good. So I would recommend going to your local fisher market, getting some like rock cod, rockfish, things of that nature. Halibut is great. But some of those don't even have enough omega-3s like to feed you. Like black cod is one that does have a lot of omega-3s. It's really good for you. But some of these don't. So this is why I have, even as much fish as I like to eat, I still have to take the omega-3s. Okay, so I think this is one of the last ones. Our storage capabilities. Hang on with me. I know this is a long lesson. Our storage capabilities. Remember, we burn through ATP so freaking quickly. Like all of this stuff gets burned through within, like the amount of ATP we generate can get burned through like so quickly. Like you can technically burn through almost all this ATP within like seconds, right? And same thing with Same thing with well, not the same thing, but sorry, same thing with glucose. Again, long lesson. um, Creatine, we store about 120 to 160 grams. Muscle glycogen, 600 to 900 grams. Liver glycogen, 80 to 100 grams. So if you run out of regular glycogen, like in your muscle stores, your body will take from the liver and try to maintain homeostasis of blood glucose levels, because glucose is our preferred fuel source. It's our predominant brain fuel source as well. So if you don't have this in your bloodstream at any moment in time, you get lightheaded, you feel off, and if you start pulling from your liver, if you've ever been kicked in the liver, you know what it feels like to just drop, just weird. So yeah, so you can imagine if you start pulling that glycogen out of your liver, it's going to disrupt homeostasis and you're not going to feel good, okay? Now, when it comes to fat, you got so much fat on your body that, it makes you wonder why we dip into these other stores first before burning body fat. And again, I think it just goes back to a survival mechanism type understanding of the body. It's just like the last thing to go because it may need it later. So yeah, I think we have, like, technically we have plenty of energy, and we know the oxidative system can burn that can burn fat to restore glycogen, to restore phosphagen. But if it disrupts homeostasis enough, we know how fatigue kind of works, right? It's all intertwined. So you have this disruption of homeostasis, and that's when failure happens. But yeah, so takeaways: fat loss is a skill. Track your macros, time your meals. Actually, you don't have to time your meals. Track your macros and input your meals in ChatGPT. Don't have cheat meals. Cheat bites are okay. Like if you have a little cookie every now and then, that's okay. But it's really not okay to have cheat meals, okay? Negative 500 calories per day is 1 pound of fat per week. And then include resistance training, sleeping, eating right? Diets on low CNS days. And then high CNS days, you can have a surplus. It's encouraged. 1% of body weight per week max, or that 500 calories per day for not disrupting homeostasis. Carbs, again, are going to be your preferred fuel source. Go hand in hand with fiber. Don't forget about that. It's responsible for gut health. It affects mood, which affects everything else. Fats from fish, nuts, avocados, etc. Get your omega-3s. Get your supplement from Thorne. Micronutrients and fiber are just as important and very important in caloric deficits. Remember what I told you about potassium and calcium. All right, guys. That was a long one. Thanks for sticking in there. See you in the next lesson.